Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the hearing to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're in Treaty 1 territory in the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Ron Merritt. I'll be your chairperson this afternoon. And introducing the panel members is Mr. Doug Marks to my left, and to his left is Richard Woodred. Representing the city from the assessment department is Arif Duff Mohammed.
Arif Duff Mohammed.
And our recording secretary is Helen Rowe. We'll be hearing an application for revision for the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested has been described in each application, and we'll limit discussions to those matters. The statements that the applicant or the assessor make at the hearing are sworn testimony, and anybody speaking in these matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is reported annually by City Council and is independent of it, along with the city administration. We make our decisions based on the evidence provided at the hearing and issue a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decision in respect to an application may be appealed to the municipal board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the board's order. In respect to the hearing this afternoon, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each of the applicants. Following the swearing in, we'll then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions, and then it'll be the other applicant it'll be the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each party will have the opportunity to summarize if we wish. Once all evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket this afternoon. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live stream recorded and will be part of the public record. I'll ask our secretary to either swear in or affirm the assessor, and to swear in or affirm Mr. Newfield and Mr. Mercury.
Please state your full name.
Arif Duff Mohammed.
Do you affirm the evidence you present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your full name.
Rocky Nicole.
Do you affirm the evidence you present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please,
James Mercury.
you swear the evidence you present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I hope you got it.
We'll just do a little bit of cleaning in respect. We're going to go to item number 2, which is 1857 Notre Dame. And because you're not going to be given evidence, we won't have you sworn in, but you are representing this property, are you not? Okay. And maybe just read it, the file number and the roll number into it, okay?
Okay, so Board of Revision, file number 19-1683, and
No. Sorry, the other roll number. The other file number. Use the docket.
sorry. So it's file number 19-4852. The roll number is 0709015150, and the address is 1857 Notre Dame. And the roll year is 2020, reference date is April 1st, 2018, and the assessed value is $1,006,000.
You can read that into the record, okay? The file number and the roll number.
All right, so file number 19-1683, roll number is 0709015150. Address is 1857 Notre Dame Avenue. Roll year is 2020. Reference date is April 1st, 2018.
Stop there. Mr. Newfield, you are appealing liability. and class and quantum.
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to deal with the liability first? Okay,
Yeah, I can address that.
Okay.
Thank you. If you have the brief that's been filed by Colliers.
okay. Go ahead, Mr.
Okay,
Richard.
I'd like to ask the assessor's brief. The Colliers brief, it's a thicker package of material. We have it. It's
Okay.
page numbered, yes.
Okay.
So just to clarify, members of the panel, if you look at the Colliers brief, this property is leased by Society of Manitobans for Disabilities. They are a registered charity which exists to serve Manitobans with disabilities of all kinds. This particular property is used for wheelchair services, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but the specific section of the Municipal Assessment Act that is relied upon is section 23(1)E, which is at page 120 of the brief. You can just see the section. You may be familiar with it. It reads that real property is exempt from taxation where the property is owned by or held in trust for and used by a charitable organization primarily for the purpose of giving relief or assistance to aged, indigent, or sick persons. So I don't think there should be any dispute in terms of the use of this property, the fact that Society for Manitobans with Disabilities is in fact a registered charity and is in fact assisting people with disabilities. But we have included the relevant information in the brief. If you go back to page 4 of the brief, there's just an excerpt from the lease agreement. You'll see that SMD, as they're known, is the tenant in this property, the sole tenant. There's some photographs of the property. Effectively, those who qualify or are in need of a wheelchair are referred to this particular location. They are seen by occupational therapists. Their particular needs are assessed. They're fitted with wheelchairs, and those are provided to those in need. If you flip ahead to page 54 of the brief, there's a brief description of SMD, and in particular their wheelchair services program. You'll note that the top paragraph, for over 30 years they've been providing children and adults in Manitoba with essential mobility through the loan and manual and motorized wheelchairs. Their focus is on meeting the basic mobility needs of people who are active and living independently within the community. We've also included their policies and procedures manual. You'll notice that their mission statement at page 57 at the top is to continually develop, maintain, and deliver relevant services that assist in the development of individual independence and community support for persons with disabilities. And there are various procedures outlined in this manual which we need not go through. I would note at page 58, in terms of the general client eligibility criteria, you'll note that in order to be serviced at this location, you have to be someone suffering with a physical disability, requires a wheelchair for a minimum of 6 months, and also those who are at the end stage of a life-limiting illness are considered to be palliative. Those also qualify as individuals if they've been prescribed by an occupational therapist, physiotherapist, physician, or registered nurse licensed to practice in Manitoba. We skip ahead to, sorry for the skipping around a little bit here, but one of the criteria of section 23(1)E is that they are in fact a registered charity. If you look at page 113 of the brief, that's just confirmation of the registered status of SMD as a registered charity. The Winnipeg Regional Health Authority is effectively the umbrella organization. They provide the funding for SMD. They are also, of course, a registered charity. We have included as well 2 board of revision orders starting at page 88. These are the 2018 and 2020 assessments of the property situated at 825 Sherbrooke Street. SMD is a tenant in both of those properties. And they came before this board, and on 2 separate occasions, this board has changed the classification liability, as you can see in these orders, from fully taxable to school tax exempt. So you can see at page 88, that's the most recent 2020 reference year, the taxation year, and then at page 91, the 2018 taxation year. So there does not appear to be any dispute, certainly from this board, that SMD qualifies under 23(1)E of the Municipal Assessment Act. This is just simply another location that they offer a different type of services. This happens to be wheelchair service. And just very, very briefly, we've included a copy of the leading Manitoba Court of Queen's Bench case in WASO and the city assessor for the city of Winnipeg. And simply this case, that's at page 97 going forward. That simply establishes that leasehold ownership is sufficient for section 23(1)E, and of course SMD is here a leasehold owner. And subject to any questions you may have, that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Assessor, questions?
I have no questions.
Mr. Marks?
None for me, thank you.
Mr. Whiteford?
No.
Just offhand, Mr. Mercury,
Yes.
Is this the first year they've applied for the?
It is.
It is. And to your knowledge, why didn't they do this before?
It's a good question. Mr. Neufeld and I were retained by Winnipeg Regional Health Authority 2 or 3 years ago to start looking at various properties. Frankly, this is one that came to our attention much later in the day, and Mr. Neufeld might be able to expand.
Yeah, I don't think this comes as a surprise, but the registry in the provincial government on these isn't available. This is all done by hand, so we started off with the WHA sites where there's a direct relationship, and then we went after their funded sites, and we've been finding them piece by piece. It's our own due diligence that's turning these up. They don't have an inventory of these.
And I think part of the issue is because it's under lease, it's not registered ownership, and so the assessment department frankly may miss it, and this happens quite commonly where we're still uncovering the various tenancies that are subject to exemptions that just haven't been addressed. So it is unfortunate, seeing that they appear to have been occupying the space since 2011, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Okay.
but we're attempting to rectify that moving forwards.
Good. All right. I think, I'm sorry? I think we have to wait for their secretary to come back.
Yes.
I'm noticing something here. Here.
You okay, Bella?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the old lease. Extension here. It's the same number. So it's just extended.
It's my
You want to go on to classification now?
Or the classification would simply follow the liability. So
Okay, good.
there's no-
Then we'll go back and have the assessor take us through the property. So we're talking about the value and quantum. So the floor is yours.
All right, so again, 1857 Notre Dame, parcel use is industrial warehouse. Number of buildings is 3, number of premises is 1, number of stories ranges from 1 to 2. Actually, built ranges from 1973 to 1985. The effective year built that we're utilizing is 1979. Wall heights range from 12 feet to 22 feet. Zoning is C2 community. Land area is 43,977 square feet. Plan area is 16,015 square feet. The gross floor area and the leasable area are both 20,215 square feet, and the land to plan area is 2.75 to 1. So, if you turn to page 11 and 12, you'll see the income expense and rent roll submission. So there we see that the applicant is collecting total income of $171,908 with a net operating income of $134,416. On the next page is the tenant, which we just discussed, SMD Services. So if you look on page 10, there was a permit taken out for elevator install and interior alterations totaling $375,000 back in 2011. So going to my comparables, you'll see that all of these are current in relation to the reference date. Effective ages range from 1963 to 1990. The wall heights range from 12 feet to 22 feet. The leasable areas range from 19,000 square feet, approximately 19,000 to approximately 23,500 square feet. And the net rents range from $7.24 per square feet to $8.08 per square feet. Going to our workup on page 4. We're utilizing income rent rate of $7.46 per square feet. We're allowing a 6% vacancy loss, even though the subject has been tenanted since 2011. We're allowing 2% non-recoverable expenses as per our non-recoverable study located on page 15. We're allowing for a vacancy shortfall of $3.75 per square feet. This results in a net operating income of $134,373, which is virtually identical to the actual net operating income located again on page 11. We're utilizing a high cap rate of 8.3% to take into account the age, condition, location of the subject. This results in a capitalized value of $1,618,952 for an assessed value of $1,619,000. If you turn to page 7, here's the map of the subject. Underneath that is the parcel boundaries. On the following page, page 8, is the overhead view of the subject, and below that is the street view. So taking into account the state of the industrial real estate market in Winnipeg over the last several years, the subject's ability to generate an average income, their actual reported net income, which is similar to our estimates, we believe that the assessed value of $1,619,000 to be fair and equitable, and I respectfully ask that the board confirm this finding. I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Mr. Newfield, questions?
Yes. The valuation on page 4, was this all done by the model?
Yes.
No overrides, any sort?
No.
We've got 20,215 square feet. They have declared on page 11, 20,169, correct?
Right.
And don't know if you've seen a copy of the lease, but doesn't the lease also indicate 20,169?
That's what the income expense, but we got these measurements off the permits that were applied for.
The permits, correct. Now, well, you said the permit you thought was applied for installation of an elevator.
Yes.
Now,
Well, it's the elevator and interior renovations.
right, and it says here, for a new tenant to occupy, page 9.
Right.
So this is a code review, is it not?
Sorry?
This is code review.
Yes, I would imagine.
Yeah, okay, and it's a two-story building?
There's 2 and 1 story sections.
Right, there's a two-story section, and there's an elevator,
Right.
and there are stairwells.
I would imagine, yes.
So you're aware that under BOMA standard of measurement, vertical penetrations aren't counted?
No, I wasn't aware.
Okay, and permit takes gross area, but leasable area must deduct the vertical penetration.
Okay.
I am
So
just
we're
wondering if that's.
We're disputing about,
No, right, and I'm just wondering, just trying to outline what the discrepancy in the size is. Perhaps the one that the landlord is using is a BOMA measurement, and the one that you're referring to is a full building, which includes the vertical penetrations, being stairs and elevators.
correct, yeah, we're only off by like less than 50 square feet, I believe.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we get it right, that's all.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll make a note to adjust that.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned that your net income on page 4 at $134,000 was the same as the owner's declared income on page 11. Couple of questions here. The owner's net income doesn't include provision for a vacancy, does it?
Well, he's got 0 vacancy, so.
Well, I understand, but he has not had a vacancy, correct?
Right,
And-
and I'm also, I've become aware that the tenant has signed another 7-year lease.
Okay, we'll get to that. Now, in valuation, you've got to add on a vacancy list.
And we
correct?
have added that on, yes.
Right, so you're not actually comparing the two at 134,000 and suggesting that they're based on the same concept, are you?
We allow for vacancy and shortfall.
What's your gross number for, sorry, what's your potential income?
150,804, which is less than their total income.
Well, what are you suggesting their potential income is?
Well, it includes recoveries also.
Right, so what's the income without recoveries?
Well, it would be rental plus parking or CCR. I'm not sure what CCR stands
Yeah,
for.
we'll get to that too.
Well, their rental income without the CCR is listed right there at about 116,000.
Right, 115,972, so we are not using the same income, are we?
Oh, we're using the same net operating.
No, we're
income.
not. We're not using the same potential income, and there's different
Gentlemen, I'd
formulas.
like you to have questions and answers, okay? Not a general discussion, please. Okay?
Very well. So do you know what CCR is?
No, I don't know what CCR is.
Well, other than the band, you're not
I don't know.
familiar with the term CCR, capital cost recovery?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I am familiar, but I don't recognize the
So-
acronym.
A capital cost recovery is not income, is it?
No, but,
At one point, 2011, someone spent $375,000, to which the tenant is allocating $16,000 a year to repay for those, his share of those improvements.
so they're paying for their rentals, okay.
Right, so if you have a line item in a statement where you have a recovery, you also need a line item in your statement
I'm just wondering why it
that shows
wasn't
an
capitalized.
expense, don't you?
Sorry?
If you have a financial statement with an income on it, and it was to repay a loan, on the other side of the financial statement, on the debit side, you need to have that cost then also attributed to the property. But because this one was done 8 years ago, it was in the statements from 8 years ago, correct?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Have you inspected?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
The last time it was inspected, no, we haven't inspected.
Those are my questions, thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Marks?
None for me, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Whitbread?
No, I'm okay.
Mr. Newfield, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I think you got the concept of our difference here on income. We're using actual income. It is $115,972. There was a renewal in 2018 at $115,972. So there's no question what the actual income is. I don't know where we got that number in the square footage of 19,295. However, I'm not concerned at all, because the number we're using is 115,972 actual income. Our vacancy rate is slightly higher than what the assessment department has. We are using actual vacancies of industrial, and this would be in St. James area. So the actual rate in that neighborhood is a bit higher at we're using 7.3%. The summary pages for that are on page 13 as well. I have brought the original documentation. And as I keep saying at hearings, when you start looking at vacancy, the goal is to not be as misleading as possible. Now, the Johnson report comprises an inventory, little fine print of 15 pages of industrial properties across Winnipeg. So it's transparent, and we can look them up. And we can also look for small areas and see if they're different, or see if there's anomalies anywhere. For example, Transcona has 12 entries here, 13, with 193,000 square feet. We never rely on that, it's too small a sample size, then we look at the whole city. St. James happens to be one of the largest areas. There are 272 records of 9 million square feet of inventory. So it's a very good sample size. So these are the actual vacancies. And they're also investment vacancies. So you won't find owners' buildings placed on here whether an owner is full or empty, because that comes into this discussion an awful lot. If a property owner has a building and it's listed for sale, is it vacant or is it not? We say, don't include it in the study because it doesn't show the world anything of any substance. And don't use it as 100%, don't use it as 0%, just don't use it. And that's the great part about having a real report. Just a minor point in regard to the numbers we used their June 2018 number. Now, I've talked to Mr. Wayne Johnson and his predecessor, Ken Croach, several times. It's published in June of 2018. It's delivered to the user in June 2018. It takes over a month to print. All this information was gathered before the effective date of April 1st, 2018. It's possible there might be one or two entries that are past that time. They certainly are not going to throw our numbers off. And we do have the previous years as well, just for sake of comparison. And the 2017's numbers are in our report, which we didn't provide to you, but they do not differ. It's become an issue that is often brought up. We are using the 2017 number, 7.2% and 7.3%. That's one difference. Now, we are using non-recoverables. We don't represent the owner. We did not fill out this form. But I see some issues here that are incorrect. For example, there's absolutely nothing listed. Well, there's $10 listed for property management. I think they're spending more than $10 in property management. They have a services of $2,300, but there's no corresponding item on expenses for the services. So I think this statement is faulty. A standard amount is 5%. This is a professional organization who incur costs. We've done our own study in Colliers for our managed properties, and we've been through this lots and lots of times, but I don't know what page is in my report here. It's on page 49. So our summary finding was our managed properties on page 53 was a stabilized rate of 7% is the market norm, unless you're experiencing vacancy issues, and in which case it is higher than that. But a typical building is going to run at about 7%. The shortfall has been calculated on the basis of the known costs. The only issue with that is that if the property is changed to exempt, that shortfall rate will drop to about $4 from $5.22. So I will let the board struggle with that very difficult calculation. Should it be reduced by 20% from $7,300 to $5,900? Our NOI is calculated $90,054. The first opportunity we've had to really examine the assessor's brief, and we have it at 9%. I think that upon reflection, 8.3% is fair in my opinion. And so we're gonna just change our final number, so at least we have one thing we can agree with. 8.3% is a value of $1,084,988. That's 1,084,988, round to $1,085,000. In summary, that is actual income, the assessor's cap rate, $1,085,000. Never, this property has never, to my knowledge, been reviewed, and if it has, our concern there would be if the landlord appeals this and the tenant pays the bill, that's not a fair review. The tenant's paying all the bills, it's his right to have it reviewed, and he's paying $159.72 in rent, so a value of $1,085,000, the assessor's cap rate is fair. A couple of the pictures just help out a bit. The page 5. The elevator was added because, in this case, code review requires it, new buildings, second floor. Also, considering that this is someone who sells wheelchairs, not sells them, but provides wheelchairs to the public, I think an elevator is a required part of the business model. The pictures of the inside of it are pretty much shows what happens on the inside, and they don't have a model that you come into a showroom and try out your model. You come in, you're measured, and they make one for you from their parts bins. Everything is hand custom built. Then it can be sold to the person or leased to the person. All sales are by prescription or to the federal government, and they fully service them. Page 7, the top of page 7 are the repair bays. So this particular model had a problem, so they bring it in and they fix it, and they have loaners. On page 8 and 9 are the upper floor. This had been in use as a daycare facility, a not-for-profit daycare facility. Don't know why no one had ever appealed it, because it should be totally exempt. But at the time of inspection, it had been vacated, and SMD were using it for their own purposes. SMD leases the whole site and sublet that space to a daycare provider. But now they're assuming care and control of the whole site, and page 10 shows their planned use of it. Therapy rooms was where they're going to be going with it. I think that's my presentation.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
Yes, so Mr. Neufeld, you said that you're not representing the owner, is that correct?
Not the property owner, no.
So you wouldn't really know where the income expense numbers came from, would you?
I know what I gleaned from reading it.
But you
what I
haven't
stated.
spoken to the
No, I
owner
have
about
not.
it?
Other than what's been determined, that the CCR is a capital cost recovery, and we have a copy of the lease.
And your vacancy rate of 7.3, are you aware that Cushman and Wakefield indicates that, actually, this property is located in the northwest quadrant of the city, correct?
Well, it would be deemed St. James.
Northwest, Keewatin, or sorry, Notre Dame and St.
Yeah,
James.
well, the two areas it could potentially go in would be St. James or Inkster, and because Inkster's a defined area, more defined area, it's generally, the loose area is called St. James, and St. James runs from the border with West End, which is just on the east side of Cole Park, all the way to the airport.
But it is located on the northwest quadrant?
St. James.
Northwest quadrant of the city?
Our in our studies, let me just give you, just double check this here. So what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the St. James area, in the Johnson report. And we have numbers on Notre Dame running between 1,500 and 2,190 Notre Dame. So Johnson classifies it St. James.
Okay, so why would Cushman and Wakefield say that there's 3% vacancy? Colliers is stating that there is 3.66% vacancy, and Capital Commercial Real Estate, they're indicating 6.1. So the range is between 3 and 6.1, but you have 7.3 from.
On page 31 of my brief, there are benchmark definitions. Major real estate firms track major investment properties. Johnson tracks all of them. So we don't track, and I know that the other two organizations, my neighbor is CBRE or CCRE now, who did that report, and I used to work at Cushman. Neither of these three firms tracks the miscellaneous inventory because they're out to provide a broad, countrywide broad approach to countrywide investors, not local investors. They're out chasing the big deals, so they only report on the big organizations. So you'll note there that the minimum of 25,000 square feet on a multi-tenant, 50,000 on a single tenant, tilt-up panel or precast or steel frame, investment grade covenant strength, all those issues. Well, the subject is none of those. It's not investment grade, it's end user grade, and it was built in pieces. So we know that it's not tracked, and to use a company's report without seeing who's in the sample size is very, very misleading, which is why I come to this board with reports that show you what the sample size is. And incidentally, 1857 Notre Dame makes the study in Johnson. It's in here.
So are you indicating that a property that's generating $116,000 a year is not investment grade?
No, it's not. Not for the real estate firms. We're looking, there used to be some broad definitions on investment grade, and they used to start at about a $10 million value. That was the other working definition. Now, over time, with the competitiveness in the business, we've seen that number drop a bit. Where buildings in the $5 million range are included, and where it's a national or international covenant, it's gone as low as $3 million. So what we have here is a building that's worth $1 million with an institutional covenant. That's why it's not in the study. And institutional covenants, especially in the healthcare field, are not good because they change with the whims of the current elected government.
I have no further questions.
I thank you. Mr. Marks?
None for me, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Nothing.
Mr. Newfield, just to follow up, you concluded value at the $1,085,000?
Correct.
Okay. Are you seeking a total exemption?
That is correct.
Okay. So there's no breakdown in
No.
regards to?
No, in the old days, we would have requested a full exemption on the daycare, but they're gone, and they were only a subtenant. 40S. 40S is what we're seeking.
Okay. Summation if you want?
I don't
Okay, Mr. Newfield?
Yes, actual paid rent and assessor's cap. I don't know what could be simpler. You can't make rents in the marketplace and say they should pay this when they've gone together and negotiated and one side or the other isn't getting a break. This is a true negotiated lease, and there was I don't think it was deliberate, but there was a misread on the value. It's $115,972 per annum. Thank you.
I thank you. Are you excused to Mr. Berkman? Thank you for coming. Okay. We will go to the rest that you have, Mr. Newfield, and we'll start with 1375 Richard Avenue. Mr. Assessor? We'll give you a chance, okay? Well, you know what, Mr. Newfield, you can take your time because we'll make it up too, okay?
Yeah, I think you did exactly 1375.
Oh, okay.
So I don't do anything anymore, I don't back on the lodgings, I don't do nothing. 135,
So when you move out, somebody's gonna be packing for you?
That's it.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, here it is.
Okay.
So we're doing the two on Richard Avenue then?
Yes, they're actually the same economic unit, same owner.
Okay, but they have different roll numbers, okay, so we'll go to 1375 Richard Avenue.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, Board of Revision File Number 19-608, roll number 13002957000. Address is 1375 Richard Avenue, roll year is 2020, reference date is April 1st, 2018. Assessed value is $450,000. Parcel use is industrial warehouse. Number of buildings is 1, number of premises is 3, number of stories is 1. Actual year and effective year are both 1977. Wall height is 16 feet. Zoning is M2, manufacturing general. The land area is 12,906 square feet. Plan area is 6,000 square feet. Gross floor area and leasable area are both 6,000 square feet. And the land to plan area is 2.15 to 1. Turning the page over to page 2, you see there's a sale history on the subject. However, that sale was a multi-roll sale, so it was 1375 and 1385, so we're not giving any weight on that anyway, so. So if you turn to page 13 and 14, there's the income expense and the tenant roll that the client or the applicant submitted. So you'll see that they have a rental income of $42,600 with an NOI of $31,044.34. They're indicating that there's 0 vacancy. They're also indicating the leasable area that matches our 6,000 square feet, and they have 3 tenants. Going back to my comparables on page 3, you'll note that all leases are current in relation to the reference date. All comparables are industrial warehouses. All comparables are located in the same market region as the subject, that being Sergeant Park. Effective ages range from 1969 to 1979. The wall heights range from 14 feet to 19 feet. Leasable areas range from approximately 1,400 square feet to 5,400 square feet, to compare the different leasable areas within the subject property. And the net rents range from $6 a square foot to $7 per square foot. And if you notice, the first 2 comparables are right on Richard Avenue also. So turning over the page to our workup. So we're using an overall below average income quality net rent of $6.03 per square feet. We're allowing 6% vacancy loss, even though there's been 0 vacancy reported for some time. We're allowing 2% non-recoverables per our expense study on page 16. We're allowing a vacancy shortfall of $3.75 per square foot. This results in a net operating income of $31,979. You'll note that the potential rent and the NOI is similar to that of what the applicant is reporting. So we're utilizing a cap rate of 7.1% to take into account the age, condition of the and the location of the subject. Even though the cap rate is slightly on the low side, or could be on the low side, the overall condition of the subject is not affecting its ability to generate an average income. The 7.1% cap rate equates to a capitalized value of $450,408. We're assessing the subject at $450,000. If you turn to page 8, Here's the map of the subject. Page, lower on the page there is the parcel boundaries. Page 8 is the overhead view, and page 9 is the street view of the subject. So taking into account the actual rents collected and the actual net operating income reported, which supports our net operating income calculation, we believe that the assessed value of $450,000 to be fair and equitable, and I respectfully ask that the board confirm this value. I'm open to questions.
I thank you. Mr. Newfield?
Page 4, is this done by the model?
Yes.
Now, again, you said that you think that your income matches the owner's income. You're not aware that it's a requirement to put a vacancy risk regardless if there's one or not?
All I'm saying that their potential rent is higher than our potential rent, and their net income supports our net income.
What do you think their potential rent is?
Well, we believe it was $36,180, they're reporting $42,600.
Gross or net?
Well, it's, that's gross on their side.
That's gross, right. So
And
they're-
and the 36 is also net on our side, I guess.
where's 36?
Oh, sorry, the,
Their net rent they're reporting after expenses is $31,044, correct?
right, which,
And that's without a vacancy allocation, correct?
correct?
Okay. And in determining the capitalization rate, this is model-driven, and you had a comment about that being on the low side, and did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, it may be a little on the low side.
Okay.
It doesn't affect its ability to generate that income though, so.
And have you,
I mean, when we assess market, but if you look at the actuals, they're supporting our values here.
well, sorry, but that is your opinion.
Well, no,
You are
it's actual.
you're neglecting to allow a vacancy risk when you make that comment, are you not?
There's 0 vacancies, that correct?
But you have to assess with a vacancy in. That's
And-
not something that
and that-
assessment
and the-
department
Gentlemen,
is.
gentlemen,
is that-
questions and answers, please.
Has
Ask
the
a
assessment
question, get an
department,
answer.
has the assessment department eliminated vacancy risk as well?
We're allowing for vacancy, which supports our, the net income of what they're generating.
Now, you said you were disregarding the sale because it was what?
It's a multi-role sale and it's a non-arm's transaction.
Now, what's wrong with it being a multi-role sale?
Well, how do we know what the breakdown was?
Okay,
And it's
but
non-arm's length.
What was
so
the other property involved
The one right beside it,
that we're hearing next?
right,
1385 and 1375
Correct.
sold at the same time, okay.
but they're non-arm's length.
Okay,
so
now you say it's non-arm's length, and how was that determined?
We looked at the sailor, we looked at who the owner and the purchaser were.
And what, that,
And
was that the depth of your investigation?
It's a non-arm's sale, so if you look on page 10 in my brief, Frank, it's from Gerald and to Frank, and I think,
Gerald Jacobucci to Frank Lashabia.
correct. And I think they are related. I did look into this, and I am sure that this is a non-arm's length.
Okay, but you, this is as far as you've taken it? You've given us a title with 2 different people on it?
No, I have investigated the sale back at the office. I know it's an arm's length. And actually, you were representing this property last year and the previous years, and we've had this discussion before where
Yes,
it's a
but you
non-arm's
get to
length.
ask me that when it happens. I get to ask you the depth of your investigation, right? It's not debate time. I'm just asking you, you said you looked into it. I just want to know what you looked into.
Well, I know it's a non-arm's length sale.
You're, okay.
And I know I looked at this 2 weeks ago before we put
Okay.
this, so I don't have the information right now.
But you don't know on what basis that's.
Not off the top of my head, but I have
When-
investigated.
Now, when you determine that something is either non-arm's length or it's a multi-role sale, you are speaking about standards, are you not? For example, the IAAO standard says you've got to
When I'm speaking about,
exclude these, right?
when I'm speaking about a non-armed, yes, you gotta exclude non-armed
Right.
sales, yes.
And that's based on that particular standard, but that's for mass appraisal purposes, is it not?
No,
You're not aware that other standards indicate that?
you cannot use a non-arm's length, sale, whether you're doing mass appraisal or you're doing single appraisal.
Well, okay, and you're stating this from what position? You
I'm an
possess-
appraiser before I came to the
Okay,
city, so
and what was the
my,
designation?
my designation was DAR,
DAR,
yes.
okay. That's a residential designation?
Right, and we also
Okay,
have
gentlemen,
sales,
gentlemen,
residential
we're
sales.
we're going nowhere here, okay? So, you have a position, the evidence is what is presented, okay? So I don't think we can go there for the time being. Mr. Newfield, that'll be part of
You're right.
your evidence.
That's fine.
Okay?
Okay, one last question on the sale. Was it accepted by land titles? Did they have any reservations?
I'm not sure,
Are you aware of the system in land titles, that they have a
Yes.
deputy registrar who examines the sales to determine whether or not they're valid sales?
Correct.
And under the Torrens system, they have to have some reliability?
sorry,
Under the
the
Torrens system?
consideration for the, if you look at the status of title, the consideration was there, so I'm sure they verified.
And you know what the Torrens system is?
I don't know what you're
Okay.
referring to.
Thank you, those are my questions.
All right, I thank you. Mr. Marks, questions of the assessor?
Nothing from me, thank you, they've been answered.
Mr. Whitbread?
Yeah, just wanted to clarify page 8, your aerial view on the
Correct.
top.
Yeah,
I see addresses 1369, 71, 73, and 1375.
right, so the subject is from 1375 to 1369.
Okay,
And
and there is no 67 then, anywhere, because the next building is 1365.
Yes,
You see that?
yeah,
Okay, so it's those 4 addresses. that we're
right,
talking about.
yes.
Okay. And I think, Mr. Newfield asked you this, model-driven numbers?
Yes.
And you made no changes to the model?
No, and no, because the model supports the actuals,
What's the actual lot?
the actual income expense.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Newfield, you brought up an interesting, you had said that you've dealt with the assessor before in regards to this property?
Yes.
What was the result of the previous, was that a board decision?
I think there was recommendations.
There was a recommendation?
Recommendation, that's correct.
Okay, and that was 328, correct?
Yes, from 378.
From 278?
378.
378?
And then the year prior, there was also or the roll year prior to that, so 2016, there was a rec of 300 from 318.
Mr. Newfield, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Since the matter has been debated here and the door was opened on the sale, the vendor was the father, the purchaser was one of the sons. There are 7 sons, and all of them had to be treated fairly. Now, when it was sold, I was approached and asked to help them with titles and determining the market value. I had to decline because I was conflicted. They ended up getting another appraiser to do the work for them to determine the sale price and reliability for titles. So they went through, now I'd asked the assessor a question about, I said, the standards. Well, the standards are if you have a non-arm's length transaction and you hire a professional to help you, you in turn validate it as a market transaction when you go do that due diligence. And the difference in this case is that we knew that they were doing it, and not only did they have titles to satisfy, they had 6 other brothers to satisfy, make sure they got their fair share. And that is what happened in this case. So the title, the 2 sales ended up being validated by an appraiser not me, and land titles. So I think that there is some weight that can be put on them for total, and then the only thing to consider is the date of them and has there been any change in performance. That's one issue. Now, the other issue is on our workup, I want to show you that there's an error. And the people who prepared this were not aware of it, but the assessment department provided the mailers on page 12 and 13. And there's the tenant roll on page 13. 3 of those belong and 1 does not. This is just like Sesame Street. I forgot the name of that song. One of these doesn't belong. Tint Tech is the owner. And you'll also notice that the rent is a fair bit lower than the arm's length tenants. So our calculation was based on acceptance of it's a gross rent of the final number. So I've been sitting here and I think that there's a very simple solution to this, is that we should have had a higher rent declared, and then after expenses, our numbers was gonna come up, and it was going to come up approximately $6,000. And
So your NOI is gonna change?
yeah, the NOI is going to change to $30,432.
Okay. Yep.
And what we're doing is we're using the 3 paid rents and applying them to everybody. And then the cap rate, we have at 925. Now this is a page 2. These are regular shaped properties, this and the one next door. They're like the remnant where Richard Avenue butts up against the, what's the name of that, the Garbage Hill?
Mm-hmm.
Garbage Hill? Yeah, okay, we all know what Garbage Hill is. It has a name. City Dump. I think they took the least popular counselor and we can probably put that name on there. Right now, it might be the Mayor Kate's Hill. Eventually, they'll rename it. But I'm just joking. So it's at the tail end, and this is if you look at the pictures, page 3 again. This is just a repair shop base for service people. It's very low quality. You can see that the ceiling height is no way industrial. It's low ceilinged. So our cap rate, the properties like this, honestly, they sell and transact by direct comparison on an investment basis. You will find very few sales of this type. I wouldn't cap it higher or lower than 9% anyway. So what we have here at 925 is 328,995, rounded to 329,000. I'm not making this up. That's just a coincidence that it's about the same as last year.
And you're using 9 1/4?
9 1/4 and an NOI of 30,432.
So 329,
Correct.
and that's your presentation.
That's it.
Questions of the applicant?
Yes. So, Mr. Michelle, you said Tint Tech is the owner?
That's Frank's site, yes.
Okay, are you aware they moved out?
They might have changed their name, or he sold the business, but at the time this was done, he was in possession, he was running it. Sorry, Al. I think he's got another brother, Frank, in another building. I worked from all Frank, Al, Joe, Sal. I forgot the rest of the family names. I hope they're not mad at me.
Yeah, so I went down to inspect June 6, 2018 to move Tint Tech out of there.
Okay.
So,
No, and that doesn't change anything I've done because.
but I don't understand, this is not owner operated.
No, at
That's what
the-
they're getting at.
The statement shows that Tintec was, at this particular time, the statement relying on the owner had part of the space, and you can see clearly that he's paying half the rent of the other people. They all have the same bay size. The others are paying 12,000, he's paying 6,000, so I added 6,000 to my NOI. Because, and the reason I did 6,000 even is because it's a gross rent situation. So expenses have already been accounted for, so 6,000 is pure income.
So they're recovering, sorry, this is not annual property tax, you said? It's annual net.
Yeah, it's gross rent.
How would they put it under property or tax recoveries?
Where's that? No, we got. Oh, no. If you read it, when Al filled out the form, he stroked out property tax recovery, and he, on top of it, he put annual rent. You see that on your page 13?
All right,
He just extended the $500 a month, turns into $6,000 a year.
and again, when was the last time there was a vacancy in here?
They've had periodic vacancies, but it's a small service shop, so it's pretty easy to turn around and replace a tenant. Might have a couple of months at a time. And you can see the tenancies are all mostly month to month anyway.
All right, yeah, I have no further questions.
I thank you. Mr. Marks?
Just one, have there been any upgrades done to the
No.
building at all?
No, nothing.
And parking is good, bad, or indifferent there?
It works for passenger type vehicles. You can see picture page 2. There's, it's a narrow building and parking in the front and a drive-by lane. So it works for predominantly dealing with repairs on smaller vehicles. Obviously no semi-trailer access.
Okay.
So it's limited on what it can do.
Page 8, overview on my brief has
Thank you.
I thank you. Richard?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. I have none, so summation, if you want. Mr. Newfield?
Thank you. Adjusted net rent to, with 3/4 of them being actual rents and using that same rent, and a higher cap rate, which we both, I believe, agree that it should go a bit higher.
a bit higher than 7. but-
Yeah, exactly. I'm not putting words in your mouth. You had some movement there. Thank you.
All right, let's go further down the street. This is another child or son. We'll go to 1385 Richard. We'll keep it in the family.
Okay, Board Revision File Number 19-609, roll number 13002956800. Address is 1385 Richard Avenue. Roll year is 2020, reference date is April 1st, 2018, and the assessed value is $400,000. Parcel use is industrial warehouse, number of buildings is 2, number of premises is 2. They were built between 1969 and 1976. We're using an effective year built in 1971. Wall height is 14 feet to 16 feet. Zoning is M2 manufacturing general. Land area is 11,150 square feet. Plan area is 5,440 square feet. The gross floor area is 5,440 square feet. The leasable area is 5,100 square feet. The land to plan area is 2.05 to 1. So again, this was part of the other property, a non-arm's length sale. So again, we're not putting any weight on this sale. If you turn to page 13 and 14, or sorry, 12 and 13, there you have the income expense mailer that was submitted and the tenant letter by the applicant. Again, you'll note that they're reporting rental income of $46,200, NOI of $34,143.44. Okay, so going back to my comparables, again, I'll just use the same comparables. The last two, or this building and the previous building, are comparable. So again, you'll note that all the leases are current in relation to the reference date. All comparables are industrial warehouses. All comparables are located in the Sargent Park market. Effective ages range from 1969 to 1976. Wall heights range from 14 feet to 19 feet. Leasable areas range from approximately 1,400 square feet to 5,400 square feet. Net rents range from $6 per square feet to $7 per square feet. Again, you'll notice that there's two comparables right on that street. Going to my income workup, so we're utilizing overall below average income rate of $6.28 per square feet. We're allowing 6% vacancy, even though there hasn't been any vacancy reported for some time. We're allowing 2% non-recoverable expenses as per page 16 of our expense study. We're allowing a vacancy shortfall of $3.75 per square feet. This results in an NOI of $28,365. We're utilizing a cap rate of 7.1%. That gives us a capitalized value of $399,507, which works out to assessed value of $400,000. So again, if you turn to page 8, I have the same picture, or sorry, page 7. There's the map, and actually the subject parcel boundaries down at the bottom should not be on that. It should be right beside it, the lot that says 1 on it. On page 8 is the overhead views, and then on page 9 is the street views of the subject property. So taking into account the actual rents collected and the net operating income reported by the landlord, which are both higher than our calculations, we believe that the assessed value of $400,000 to be fair and equitable, and I respectfully ask that the board confirm this value. And I'm open to questions.
I thank you. Mr. Duffield?
Page 4 is all model.
Correct.
And have you inspected?
Well, I went to the other building. I assume they're similar.
Yeah, okay. So what I'm wondering again is about the cap rate. We were talking about a building, now you keep calling it 14 feet high, but that's an external measurement, correct?
That's ceiling height, actually.
External.
Oh, sorry, that is wall height.
Yeah, that's external wall height though, right?
Correct. I would imagine. I'm not sure though.
Well, we do it the old-fashioned way. We count bricks on the outside.
Now, tape measure?
14 feet. No, the bricks are 8 inches, right? So I just quickly counted the bricks, and the outside height is 14 feet. So that means the interior height is about 11 feet, right? I mean, there's a truss there, right?
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, but a roof truss is 2 to 3 feet, depending on the age and the style of truss. So interior clear, 11 feet in that ballpark. Fair to say? And your typical industrial building is much higher than that?
Yeah, but it depends. Yes, they are. Well, no. Some are and some aren't.
Oh, yeah, okay. But a good building has, the
If
better,
you're gonna be pulling in semis,
the
probably-
higher the ceiling, the greater interest there is in it as a tenanted or as an investment. Is that a fair
I wouldn't
comment?
say that because I've seen properties where the ceiling heights are really high and they don't have semi-trucks backing into it. So,
Okay, well, you brought up this subject. Where does the semi-trailer?
well, they don't because they don't need semi-trucks back.
Where does the semi-trailer come on this property?
Well, I imagine they don't need semi-trucks.
Well, they don't need it, but you're talking about marketing it. What we're talking
Well,
about.
I'm referring to my comparables. So the two comparables on Richard are 14 feet, which is what our system says. So I imagine that's the same as what the wall height is on the subject property, because it's also in our system, so.
I'm not talking about rent comparables. I'm saying that for alternate use, the minute, this is basically automotive repair, auto body shops, the minute they leave, you're not leasing it out to someone who needs semi-trailer delivery, are you?
No, but you said.
So that's a limited, more limited interest in the market for alternate use. Would you disagree with that?
Yes.
You're saying that it's the same interest in the market?
No, I'm saying that anybody who wants an automotive shop will buy that building.
I'm saying for alternate use. Alternate use
Well,
includes semi-trailer.
for alternate, yeah, if you're gonna alternate.
Okay, that's what the question I asked. For alternate use, there is less interest than there would be for a high ceiling building that had semi-trailer access.
Depends on what the alternate use is for, like.
It's a simple concept. I don't think the reason that okay, I don't want to get rebuked again for arguing. Okay. I guess I'm just wondering, considering all that, you made a comment that perhaps on the last one, that 7.1 might be a bit low. And you
would-
never said a number, and I respect that. Are you of the same opinion of this property?
Yes, and I would expect it to be somewhere maybe between 7 and 8, but not 9.
Okay, higher, but higher.
Higher than 7.1.
Okay. Those are my questions, thank you.
I thank you, Mr. Marks.
None for me, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
No, nothing.
I noticed that your NOIs are close to the same, so let's talk cap rate.
Absolutely. I'm only gonna say one thing about them. I'm going through this and wondering how it was calculated, because the NOI is 34,143. And then you'll note that we were using 35,631. But this is someone who works for me being clever, because then he put in non-recoverables of 1487, which equals 34,143. Just being a bit clever. So, yes, we're not gonna debate income. Cap rate, we both agree it should be higher, we just don't agree how much higher it should be. The decision from the previous year was a recommendation, depriving our chairperson of exercising his decision-making prowess. So now this year he's got a chance to see how he'd like to respond to this. We're not gonna change our number, we're about 310, last year was 338, we accepted 338. I got nothing against that number, it's just that, I think it would be higher. Page 29, the middle of the page are industrial rates, and we have single tenant A, multi-tenant B, and as I mentioned earlier, these are rates for good buildings. This is not a good building, this is miscellaneous, it doesn't get tracked by major users. You know, it's a lot like the office world. Everybody knows there's classes on office, A, B, C, D, miscellaneous. Well, we don't track miscellaneous or D or half the Cs, we track A's and B's. But the world users, like, you know, the Johnson report actually breaks them all down by different class, as does the city. Unfortunately, no one does it in the industrial world. There should be many, many classes of buildings. There should be the miscellaneous class, and it should be deemed that way on utility, pure and simple utility. It's not the year, it's not the size, it's what were the major issues with an industrial building? Ceiling height and getting a semi-trailer in. The better those abilities are, the more interest they are in the market. After that come the other utility factors, and the larger they are, the ability to attract national tenants moves them up into the categories where companies like Colliers begin to track them. We do not. Now, there are a couple of caps, actually on page 32 and 33. This is my writing, and what I was attempting to do was to break down that there should be at least 5 different classes of industrial. The flex, single tenant, average type, basic type, and low type, because that's what Winnipeg's all about. And then lastly, manufacturing. So this one would be either a low warehouse or in the manufacturing category, to account for the fact that it's automotive repair. And you can see that our own work on this indicates that if you took base rates of 675 to 775, you should be looking at between 1 to 5 points higher. And it's true, most of them are sold on the basis of owner occupancy. The investment interest, low to none. And that's a realistic issue, is that there's no investment issues, they don't get tracked. Supply and demand is good, but statement reliability is a major issue. No investor is gonna take this statement and invest money on this basis. This is just
a small company, single operator, the guy's gotta do it for taxes, he's gotta do it for the assessment department, but this isn't a professionally managed operation, this isn't something where the statements get traded on the Securities Exchange Commission and are used to determine lending. So it's low reliability, because that's what it is, it's miscellaneous. The sales we had looked at on these, page 36, there's the slate portfolio, which was averaged at 8.6%, and that included a number of different buildings in different categories. Generally, all of them were superior to this. On page 37, there were a couple of smaller industrial properties. I was thinking of 367 Poplar, which is kind of a multi-use warehouse with a really poorly defined concept of what a unit it was, but it did sell at a cap of 10.66%. That's real miscellaneous industrial. Also, 35 Winfield, which was a manufacturing facility at 9.48%. And page 38, we included Richard in our calculations at a cap of 8.75 was the actual, 9.24 in city parameters. And this was based on the sale, admittedly between related parties, but was facilitated by an appraiser and then taken for reliance of land titles. So the issue with using a cap rate like this is it does bear some weight, and it is being transparently described to you. And we did have willing seller and willing buyer, and we did actually have a great amount of pressure on the purchaser's side to ensure that a fair value was done for the other people involved in the estate. So I think the number we have is fair. We're also fine on both cases with a number in and around last year's recommendation, because basically nothing's happened to this property in 2 years. There's been no movement. It hasn't gotten worth more. Thank you very much. That's my position.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I'm not gonna bring up the slate portfolio, I think everybody's probably heard that. The city disagrees,
Well, your NOIs are both the same, so pretty close to the
yeah,
same.
so, the only thing I wanna ask about, is vacancy. Are you aware of chronic vacancy in this building?
Well, it's more of a semantic issue, because there's practicing vacancy generally goes one of two directions. One is drop the price until you keep it full, or
Has there been vacancy?
or keep your rate up and hope for the right tenant that's gonna pull it. Now, it has been vacancy over the years. The tenancies are month to month, so there's no, what I'm getting at,
But,
there's no 5-year terms, so the risk of vacancy is high, because someone can give notice and walk, and you got an empty space. Now, you asked, has there been vacancy? We do have statements over the years. And I'll just take a look at that previous years, and
Gentlemen,
yes, there has been.
okay, I mean, we have to speed things along, okay? Unfortunately, and I mean, if your NOIs are close to the same, why
yeah,
are you
those are all the
discussing
questions.
vacancy? All right, Mr. Marks,
Nothing for me.
Mr. Whitford?
Mr. Chairman, sorry, but I do want to question vacancy,
Okay.
just for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Page 12 of your evidence, owner submitted, and this may just be a handwritten error, 5,100 average percent of space vacated.
I think the,
Square footage is 5,100.
Yeah,
You think
yeah.
that's an error?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
The building
Actually, I
site.
have it in the, I had already marked the errors before.
I'm not following you.
I looked at this earlier today, and I noticed the 5,100, it's just reversed. So it's 5,100 square feet, the total lease.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, yep. Okay,
You okay?
accepted.
Summation, either party? Okay. Let's go on to your last one, Mr. Newfield, which is 154th Street.
Okay, Board revision file number 19-4485, roll numbers 1209-308-0000. Address is 154th Street. Roll year is 2020, reference date is April 1st, 2018. The assessed value is $1,473,000. Parcel use is industrial warehouse. Number of buildings is 3. Number of premises is 6. The number of stories ranges between 1 and 2. The actual year built is 1940. We're utilizing an effective year built of 1951. Wall heights range from 12 feet to 16 feet. It's zone N for multiple use. The land area is 21,082 square feet. Plan area is 13,041 square feet. There's a basement area of 6,426 square feet. Gross floor area is 25,893 square feet. Leasable area is 21,134 square feet. Land to plan area is 1.62 to 1. So, if you turn to page 2, actually, if you turn to page 12 and 15, there we have the 12 to 15. There we have the income and expense that was submitted by the management company. So you see that there is a net revenue of $192,526, or the rental revenue is $173,907, and then the net revenue is $192,526.68. They're reporting an operating expense of $67,762 on page 13. On page 14, they have some non-operating expenses of $38,013.97. They're reporting a net income of $86,750. And then on the following page is the tenant roll. What you'll note there is that there is recoveries. Also on page 11, I do have a permit for some foundation or structural repairs that were done in the amount of $23,000 back in 2017. And going back to my comparables on page 3, you'll note that all leases are current in relation to the reference date. All comparables are located in the same market region as the subject, which is Region 6, we call it, which is City Center, West End, North End, and Fort Rouge. Effective ages range from 1955 to 1976. Wall heights range from 12 feet to 17 feet. Leasable areas range from 750 square feet to 23,500 square feet. This is because I'm bracketing the comparables by the leasable areas that are available in the subject. So subsequently, the net rents range from $5.19 per square feet to $10.06 per square feet. If you go to our page 4, or my page 4, so we're utilizing an overall income rate of net rent rate of $7.66 per square feet. We're allowing for a 6% vacancy loss. We're allowing 2% non-recoverable expenses as per non-recoverable study on page 18. We're allowing for a vacancy shortfall of $3.75 per square feet. This results in an NOI of $144,333. We're utilizing a cap rate of 9.8% to take into account the age, condition, and location of the subject. This results in a capitalized value of $1,472,786, or a assessed value of $147,000. $1,473,000. So I just want you to note our NOI of what, 144,333. If you turn back to page 14, you'll see their operating. Sorry, scratch that. What I wanted to point out is they have some non-operating expenses, so 38,000. If you should be adding that back to net income, as we don't allow non-operating expenses. We allow the 2% for non-recoverables, and that's it. So taking into consideration the state of the industrial real estate market in Winnipeg, over the last several years, the subject's ability to generate income, the actual rents collected, we believe that the assessed value of $1,473,000 to be fair and equitable, and I respectfully ask that the board confirm this value.
Thank you.
Open to questions.
I thank you. Mr. Newfield?
Yes, you mentioned that you don't allow non-operating expenses.
We allow 2% non-recoverable expenses.
Okay, so to clarify your
right.
statement is that you've stabilized it to
Right.
2%.
But they also have non-operating expenses,
Well,
yeah,
so are you disputing that they had to spend money?
No, they have operating expenses,
Are you disputing that they had to spend money on the building?
no.
Okay. You're disputing that this wasn't how much money the building actually made? After all the costs and operating?
Non-operating expenses shouldn't be in their net income.
What's your definition of an operating expense?
Well, all the other expenses that they've allowed here, like, there's utilities, there's building, R&M, there's HVAC, they're all listed here.
Well, what
on
about
page,
code review and upgrade and required
well,
upgrades?
is that operating?
If it's not,
Well, what they say here is construction supervision, I don't know what those are. There's some administration fees.
So if the city comes along and says, you've got to change your HVAC system because we don't
Well,
like
that's
it,
in
we
your
want,
HVAC expenses there.
we want more fresh air in. You think that they can recover that from their tenant, or do they have to absorb it themselves?
If you look on page 13 of my brief there, under the non-operating expenses, you see HVAC, that's where they would put that.
in your opinion? $800, $800.
I don't know, that's what they're
That's
reporting.
changing filter money.
Is that what you're saying? Like,
Well,
why
I'm
are they,
just-
why, are you saying they're lying? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
what I'm asking you is, you've made a statement that you're not allowing.
I'm
but
saying
you
we're
haven't-
allowing non-recoverable expenses
You
of
haven't
2%.
examined the invoices or the work required, have you?
Have you?
Have you examined the work or the invoice required?
No.
Okay.
How do you expect us to examine all the invoices in
Well,
the
I
city
would
for
assume-
every building?
I guess my
That's why
question
it's a mass
is,
appraisal.
my question is, if you're making statements like that, shouldn't
The
there
statement I
be
made was
Mr. Chair.
that,
some due
I'm having
diligence?
trouble following this conversation
Yes,
with
I do
the
too.
interruptions coming from the city assessor. Questions asked, then answered, if you don't mind, because I'm
Okay.
having trouble following this
all
conversation.
right.
Thank you.
My question was, if you're making adjustments of this sort, aren't you required to have some level of due diligence to review them?
Can you tell me where I made the adjustment?
You said you're not allowing this one particular cost.
No, I said we're allowing 2% non-recoverable. And my workup is right there on page 4, so that's what we did.
Now, this building, is this a net rent building, gross rent? How-
It's net rent.
You say it's net rent. So on page 15, why are there 4 tenants who pay no recoveries at all?
You see page 12,
Page 15.
but on page 12, you'll see the recovery revenue.
Well, okay, you're trying to answer a question with changing the topic here. There is recovery income listed on page 15.
So
Do you see
maybe-
that?
Yes,
Okay, and then there's 4 tenants with no recovery income. Do you see that?
yes,
So we have a building that's basically a mix of recovered and non-recovered expenses, correct? A mix of net and gross tenants, correct?
correct.
Now, when you have a building like this, How do you determine that something's an appropriate expense or not?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
When you have a building that has a mix of net and gross tenants, how can you unilaterally go through a statement and say that
I
one
did.
item belongs and one doesn't?
I'm going by there.
One set
No.
of expenses is
Yeah,
categorized for
I've answered that
operation.
question, I'm not gonna say anything more.
Gentlemen, let's have, like I said before, questions and an answer. Okay.
The workup here then on page 515, is this all generated by the model?
Yes,
And the physical dimensions, where did that number come from? 21,134 square feet?
I assume we have measured that, and we probably have a field form for that.
Page 15, the owner's declaring 18,082 square feet. So there's a fairly large discrepancy, is there not?
I assume so, yeah, I assume so.
Have you been in the building?
No, I haven't.
So, but there are effectively 3 levels here that are being reviewed. There's an upper level, first floor and basement, correct?
Correct,
And you've included all of that space in the rent roll.
correct.
Didn't attempt to reconcile it against the rent roll?
Do you want me to look at actuals, or do you want me to look at market?
No, I just.
Just answer the question.
No.
Okay. Now, have you, sorry, did I ask you haven't been in this building yet? For your, those are my questions, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Marks?
Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Basement is 6426. It appears you have a rent of $5.34 on your page 4. I'm assuming that's a basement because it's
So, which
6426.
one?
$5.34.
No, we don't have a basement area listed here.
Oh, so it's just coincidental, the square foot is the same.
Uh,
So you have a charged rent for the basement?
Actually, it looks like it is, but yeah, I think there should be an adjustment on that, so for a basement.
Do your notes reflect the I know you didn't visit. Do your notes
No,
reflect the condition of the basement?
No, maybe not.
That's about 35% of the space, or depending
Yeah, I
on
will,
whether it's here or
I will
not.
have somebody go and inspect that property.
You did not have one inspected?
No, not recently, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you can't comment on
No, yeah.
whether this is the total
No,
square
but
foot.
you are correct. I would assume that 6,426 is the basement, and that the rent should be adjusted accordingly for that one.
Because it is just a 2-story building, I think you said?
There's 1 stories and 2 stories.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like, it's 3 buildings put together there.
Maybe the applicant can shed light when we get to questioning his brief. Thank you. No further questions?
I thank you. Mr. Newfield, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This building is operated as one economic unit with the building next door at 125 Gary. Colliers took over management of it about 2 years ago. So what you're seeing here are attempts by us to deal with the splitting of the income and expenses, as well as for the purpose of the assessment department, but also for the owner's own statements. Additionally, when we took over the building, the square footage that was listed was not BOMA space, because there were the basement areas. There's a second floor storage area, which is pure open storage, which we've been dealing with. Now, when we first took it over, we changed the number, we redid it, and we presented the number of 18,000, and that's the statement that's shown. Now, subsequent to that, we have brought it down to 16.5. And now, that's the number I'm stating here, but we don't have to rely on that number simply because we're relying on actual statements. So you follow the money, the square footage won't matter, because it doesn't change how much the property is earning. But it's definitely not 21,000. And the difference is, as I mentioned, it is that second floor area that had been characterized as being space by the previous people managing it. And now our property manager is, Darren, is very, very, what's the right word I can use? He doesn't like bad numbers on size. He wants the right numbers. So we have had a challenge on getting these right. And the statement that was provided here is an amended statement, which we took from the last operator because of the time period, and we've been breaking it down. So this is a Collier's workup on the statement. Now, the statement that the assessor provided is the same one we're showing you on our page 5, 6, and 7. And in addition to the statement in addition to that statement, we are adding in, or we've also given you the statements from the neighboring property, 125 Gary. So the workup that was done, and we reviewed this with the property owners as we manage it, and yes, we do look over all the invoices. We have all the invoices, and we only put in the invoices that belong in here. We don't put capital in here because that doesn't belong in the operating side. The goal here is to put in the actual costs in the building, determine if they can be recovered or not, and charge the tenants for them. That's the job of a property manager. We do it. And if we can't recover it due to the lease, well, then we show it in the statement as non-recoverable costs. So the workup changes that differed from what the owner had provided and what the city assessor had, there were only 2 of them, and they're shown on page 3 and 4. We took out the interest revenue of $1,700. And we added in refuse removal, because the bill for refuse removal was in page 7 on the 125 Gary statement. And it's 1 garbage can, set of garbage cans. So that very, very small adjustment. So we ended up with an NOI of $83,641, which compares to what they had submitted of $86,750. That's on the assessor's page 14, and we also have it on our page 6. Those 2 minor changes. And this isn't a question of not complying with the Act, because the Act says that if you bring a different number to the board, then you submit it to the assessor, that the board can reverse the burden of proof or determine that it shouldn't be relied upon. We didn't do that. We gave you the numbers that were sent in. We're also telling you that in our efforts to split them up, there's a very small adjustment required. So we have an NOI after all vacancy is $83,641. That vacancy does turn out to be about 16%. And again, the size is different, but when you're basing your valuation on the actual income, again, the size is not going to make a difference, because we actually started at the bottom and worked it backwards. This is what the building is earning. We're using a cap rate of 10%. The city assessor's at 9.8%. I don't think there's any point arguing that. We're comfortable with the board selecting anything within that very, very narrow range. So our main difference is that the actual income. Now this is it's a garage accessory use to 125 Gary. The primary tenant is Avis. There's also parking that's rented to the tenants in 125 Gary. All of the information is disclosed. After the Avis use comes the storage use. You can see that the tenants are, in fact, the tenants in 125 Gary who are storing in the site. Ceridian, who is one of the major tenants at 125 Gary. This is their storage building. And There's also some cell tower income which has been declared, and Western Canada Lottery have 24,000 square feet of, 2,900 square feet of storage, and the cleaning company has a small office, not office, small storage room in there that they rent, and Myers is storage room. So again, it's basically storage plus the Avis rental car franchise and outside parking. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
Yeah, I just have one. I'm just wondering, I don't know if it's been answered or if you alluded to it. I'm just wondering about your square footage discrepancy between you and what's been reported by the owner.
Mine is more current because, as the Act states, it's the physical conditions as of date of appeal versus that should be considered. I know there's been a remeasurement. I'm only putting it there because this is coming forward. If I change the number to 18,082, we wouldn't change our value because, again, we're relying on the statement, and the statement is $83,000. So that won't change. The square footage won't change that. And unlike mass appraisal, where you start with the square footage and work your way forward, we started with the earnings and worked our way backwards.
Sorry, I missed what you were excluding. Can you point it out on the tenant or what you're excluding for the?
Well, for the square footage?
Yeah.
No, I didn't, but I can tell you that some of the space is being remeasured, the storage space being remeasured, and they're trying to use a more consistent BOMA method rather than whatever dimension someone had at the time.
I don't have any questions.
All right, thank you. Mr. Marks?
None for me, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Oh, such a minor point. On your page, I can't remember what page we're at, Mr. Nicol, but you referenced a net income of 83,641.
Yes.
And I think it says 83,660.
Yes, I saw that too.
Well, you should have corrected it. I'd hate to be part of a hearing where there was an
Yeah,
inaccuracy.
yeah.
It's $1,000 on value.
Whoa, $20 on the NOI is
We got 837 rounding up.
$20 divided by 0.1 is 200 on value.
I rounded up.
Well, yeah,
It's
exactly.
837.
837, yes, 1,000 value. I get it. Yes, I saw that too.
I'm sorry to niggle, Mr. Chair, but it's there.
If that's the only thing,
I have no other question.
I plead guilty.
I just have one question. Thank you, Richard. We see statements here for 125 Gary Street.
Oh, that's what it's called.
Pardon?
That's what it's called.
Oh, that's what it's, I see,
Okay.
okay, I thought
So-
that was
so-
the civic address.
No.
But, okay, okay.
We had headline it when we run our statements, and you're looking at the ones on here. You'll notice on page 5, that, by the way, page 5 and 6 are identical to the assessor's page 12 and 13. And there the header was 154. So when we manage it, everything's called 125 Gary, and then for the purpose of tax assessment, our property manager went through it and split it off and created a new one, and then changed the header for it for submission. But it's part of one unit. And there's another very interesting irony in this building. You know how I use replacement reserve now based on the square footage for roof replacement? The small irony is that the owner is Canada's largest producer of asphalt shingles. So I don't know if he gets a discount when he re-roofs, and our reserve should be lower.
You're not using any non-recoverable.
No,
in there.
well, yes and no, it's a gross building, so everything, gross building, the only appraisal methodology that really works is take the income, subtract the expenses. If you try to artificially create net rent, you're bound to make an error.
So, why is there a great discrepancy in regards to gross income, where you're at and where the city's at?
Well, they use a model,
Yes.
and they start with the square foot, and they assign a rent, and then they work it forward. I started with the statement, and I saw it was only making $883,661. And then we looked and said, well, what does this really work out into net rent as a number? And that's, how we had done it. The parking was clear what that was. That was the only number that was clear. So the big difference would be, we worked it out to 122,000 potential income, and the city's at 161,000. That's the major difference.
Yeah, and you're at 16,500, and the city's at 21,001.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah, it won't matter in my report, because I
okay,
work backwards, right?
yeah, but I mean, you know, there's
Well-
5,000 square feet.
No, but it's not gonna matter, because when you start at the profit and loss as indicated in the statement in a revenue producing building, and you
Okay,
have.
you'll just work back the numbers.
Yeah, when you go back there, because they're working forward, their
Okay.
mistake is real.
Yeah.
They're off 3,000 square feet.
Okay.
And probably if you change that number, we
Okay.
might be really close.
Summation, either party, Mr. Neufeld?
Actual income, we agree in capital.
Okay. I think that concludes your part to these. So thank you for your presentation
I
and
apologize for-
results.
I apologize for that.
I thank you kindly for
It's
your
a two-way
presentations.
street, we were both having a lot of fun, I think.
You're both
And
interesting, the chair.
results very soon.
Yes.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, but the two remaining talents may come forward and get settled in and get your briefs out. We're going to take a 5-minute break,
Sorry again.
or longer.
See, I think that's.
Okay, we will call the hearing back to order. We'll have Mr. Sitkowski sworn in.
Please state your full name.
Les Sikowski?
You swear the event to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to 850 Empress Street. Whenever you're ready, you can take us through this property, and I understand there's a recommendation, so you can tell us about that.
Okay, so it's board revision file number 19-4066. Roll number is 13000378300. Address is 850 Empress. Roll year is 2020. Reference date is April 1st, 2018. We've assessed the property at $1,854,000. We're recommending assessed value of $1,642,000 based on adjusted net rents.
Can you give us that figure one more time? 1 million?
$1,642,000.
Okay. Mr. Sitkowski, are you in agreement?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And the reasoning behind that?
It was adjusted net rents.
Okay, so net rents?
Yeah.
Okay. Panel members, any questions?
None.
Okay.
Cap rate they went with?
Cap rate?
No, just the adjusted
Okay.
net rents. yeah.
Okay, just the net rents? So, okay. Okay. So let's go to 167 Higgins.
Okay,
And I understand there is another recommendation, but you can read everything for us.
file number 19-3894. Roll number is 13091881000. Roll year is 2020. Reference date is April 1st, 2018. It's been assessed at $2,455,000. We're recommending a revised assessment of $2,100,000 based on adjusted net rents.
Okay, Mr. Sitkowski, in agreement?
Yes, I am.
Panel members, any questions? All right. So be it. We'll go on to the other one on Higgins, 173 Higgins, whenever you're ready.
Okay,
I understand there's a recommendation on there. Okay.
Board of Revision file number 19-3892. Roll number is 13091865000. Address is 173 Higgins Avenue. Roll year is 2020. Reference date is April 1st, 2018. It's assessed at $430,000. We're recommending a revised assessment of $400,000, and that's also based on adjusted net rents.
Mr. Sitkowski, in agreement?
Yes.
Panel members, okay? Okay. We'll go on to Dublin, 1717. And Mr. Assessor, I understand there's another recommendation, so you can take us there.
Okay, Board of Revision file number 19-4062. Roll number 07011054000. Address is 1717 Dublin Avenue. Roll year is 2020. Reference date is April 1st, 2018. Assessed value is $2,688,000. We're recommending a revised assessment of $2.4 million, and that's based on adjusted cap rate.
Sorry, can you say the full number?
Yes, it's $2,400,000.
Okay, Mr. Sitkowski, in agreement?
Yes, thank you.
All right, panel members, any questions?
No.
Okay. Mr. Sitkowski, thank you for your attendance, and thank you for your patience being here. And I think you already know all the results, so have a pleasant day.
Thank you, as well, the panel and secretary as well, and this assessor.
Okay. Mr. Assessor, thank you very kindly for your presentations, and I'll get our girl to shut down everything, and we will deliberate.